I have a question for you. Is this game the same as this game? Well, the answer is yes. That difference is a result of a month of work on my game, completely remaking its visuals and adding a few smaller features. How did this happen? Well, to begin, let's start at the beginning of all these changes. Before I went in and fixed the visual aspect of the game, I went in and completed a checklist of small things that I needed to add that I had built up over the time of making the past few devlogs. These were small but needed things like making it so that you won't teleport into a game while you're still reading the tutorial, which was and still possibly is very buggy, making the music actually audible, adding images to the voting system so you can get an idea of what the map you're voting for actually is, adding microtransactions, and a few other changes like that. Finishing everything there took all the first week, and after that I can move on to the largest visual changes that I have ever done. The visual changes happened in two phases. The first phase was for me to make the visuals look as good as I know how to, then in the second phase turned to the developer forum for feedback. The first thing I did was to make some relatively small changes to the GUI design, however I had nearly no experience in GUI design prior to this last month or so. This meant adding the new UI objects I happened to notice in the Add Object menu, which were the UI stroke and UI gradient. After finding out how to use them, I added them everywhere in the interface. I also decided to change the font of everything in the game from Highway Gothic to Fredoka 1. After adding them, I thought the GUI looked great, even though I would find out later that its looks absolutely suck. Either way, I got to work on the map, which saw its complete remake in Phase 1. I started by deleting the entire map except for the leaderboard, shop, and spawn point, and removed all the remaining parts to a new location that I could begin. I went for a low poly mountain map, which looked okay, but even I could tell that it looked empty, and I had no idea what to add. Either way, I had exhausted my abilities, so I went to the developer forum for feedback to start Phase 2. After I posted the current state of the game's visuals, I got a couple of detailed responses on how I could improve the game. With these suggestions, I fixed the visuals starting with the map this time. I added some trees to the map and then some fences and lampposts along the trail to improve the map, then changed the size of the trees in the hills to make it look less copy-pasted, and that also helped the map. That's about all that I added to the map, and I can move on to fixing the GUI design. This was harder to get right. I started by making the background of all the UIs white and all the text blue to create contrast, however blue text looks ugly, so I made the text black. But that looks too bland. I then made the text and icons have different colors depending on what the text is for. An example is the coin display, which uses yellow text. I also discovered that a text stroke property exists in the actual text object, so I began using that, and I found another way to use UI gradients to create more contrast in text objects by setting the gradient's rotation to 180 degrees off the gradient in the background. I had finally found the GUI design that I would apply to every interface in the game, though I needed to add it to the rest of the game. I proceeded to do this with one difficulty, which was to make the buttons required to change your marble's color easily readable. I ended up just doubling the brightness of the text stroke color. After that, I only had a bit of trouble making the cosmetic shop GUI feel less empty, and I ended up just not worrying about it. Finishing the rest of the GUI design went pretty smoothly. Here's what the GUI looks like now after all the remaking and revising. It is so much smaller and brighter than before. The change color button is now a tiny button under the coin display, and the giant shop button is now a bind coins button next to the coin display previously mentioned. The experience bar hasn't changed much, but it is smaller and has gradients. Now, even though the map and GUI have gone through some major changes, we still aren't done here. Just as I had built up a bunch of things that I needed to do over the past devlogs, I had built up some more things to add over the 3 weeks that I had been developing. The biggest thing that I had to do after I remade the map and GUI was to add the monetization, because monetization is clearly the last thing anyone wants to do. I added 3 game passes, which were the Rainbow Marbles, Triple Votes, and VIP game passes. Rainbow Marbles give access to dynamic colors, VIP gives a variety of benefits, and the function of Triple Votes is kind of obvious, giving triple votes during map voting. However, I had already made the game passes, so what's the issue here? The issue is that VIP has 0 working benefits and therefore is scamming people if I release the game at that moment. This wasn't much of an issue. 3 of the 4 benefits altogether are able to be added in less than an hour, but the 4th benefit is 8 new cosmetic shop items that are VIP exclusive. Of course, I started with the easier benefits, and then for some extra Robux, I added a purchase coins prompt that shows up when you don't have enough coins to purchase a cosmetic for easy access to the purchase button. After that quick little feature was added, I got to work on the VIP cosmetics. I'd say this took about as much work as building the trail shop did, but over a shorter time. While and even after I got it working, there were and still are some visual bugs with the cosmetics shop, but VIP players can now have exclusive cosmetics, and I think they look amazing. What do you think? Anyway, after adding the VIP cosmetics, there wasn't much left to add before beta. I added a couple of extra buttons to the side of your screen below the color change button. I added a VIP purchase button, I made the cosmetic shop accessible by clicking a button, and I improved the tutorial. After fixing a minor bug with voting, I finished the work that is covered by this video. So, what's next for Staying Ahead? The answer is a beta release. I'll be hosting beta testing sessions on stream in the upcoming Saturdays, so subscribe to be notified of them. The game will always be accessible, so be sure to join the Discord server to report any bugs that you may find in-game. The game link is in the description. Remember to like the video, and I'll see you in 2 months with Devlog 8.